This end when the final girl kills the main bad guy and the credits roll.
Welcome to the Final Girl Podcast. This is the podcast where we're discussing and analyze your favorite horror movies. My name is Ryan Turner, and I have the lovely Michael Bonner with me today. Guys, we're doing video podcasting right now.
This is unique. I'm not used to this at all.
I'm so excited about this. Those of you guys listening, at home, on Friday, because it's going to come out the day after the audio version. We're doing a video podcast. We're recording our faces right now. You guys can see this on Saturday. So those of you guys watching on Saturday on YouTube, hello from the past.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing video, not just within this show, but in 13 Palm Trees before this show even joined our channel. Mm-hmm. So this is like a historic event, and this may shape the future for the future. Didn't know where I was going with that. So.
Oh, but no, this is great to have the video podcasting today because it's a special episode, Michael. Not just because we have video, but because it's the 1-year anniversary of the Final Girl Podcast. We've been doing this show for a year. I can't believe that.
It's been a trip too, man.
It blows my mind that we have been doing this for a year. So that, guys, is why I have Michael here today, because Michael was with me on the very first episode of Final Girl Podcast, and it's only right to have him back for, the anniversary. Then he'll never be on again.
You can only hope.
We can only hope. That's a lie, because you're scheduled for like 17 episodes.
You don't know that.
So, yeah, I'm super excited about today. We've been doing this for a year. I had the little welcome in the beginning, but thank you guys so much for listening for a year. This has been a dream come true for me, because I don't know if you guys have not listened to Gurus like from the beginning. I believe I said at some point on Gurus that podcasting was like a dream of mine. And Gurus made that possible. No thanks to Roger. And then it branched off into this, because now I'm doing what I'm passionate about. Horror stuff. That's our stuff.
Look at that backdrop.
Look at this backdrop back here. You guys listening at home, you can't see it. Go check out the YouTube video. You'll see the backdrop. It's beautiful. So yeah, I'm super stoked to have been doing this for a year, and I hope you guys want to see more and listen to more and have more down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I know I love the show. Even the episodes I'm on, I still listen to, and if the numbers of the show are any indication, people are loving it. It continues to grow, more and more listeners, and we're just expanding our user base and audience every day. It's wonderful to see and hear, not just this show and all of our shows. So we thank you all for your continued support. We love you guys, and we kind of got a great episode today, I think.
I'm excited for it because this is a movie that I've been waiting to do. I mean, it's the namesake of our show. So, guys, we're talking about 2015's The Final Girls. If you guys haven't seen this movie yet, obviously, go watch it. It's fantastic. You watched it today, and you said you loved it.
Yeah, I didn't have great expectations because anything that's like tropey for like horror movies, like campy movies, things like that. I'm not a big Friday the 13th fan, or Freddy versus Jason, or even like Nightmare on Elm Street, like movies like that aren't really my thing. And so when I saw what the previews for this movie, I was like, I don't know. But it's like it was all like Cabin in the Woods in a lot of ways, where it makes fun of itself and all the ways it should. It has like a nuance to it that flows really well, even though it's not like a horror movie, so to speak. It's like a great tandem film to teach you about horror. So this is a great one to hit on for 1 year.
Yeah, I love this movie because I was afraid you weren't gonna like it, because you're not a big fan of the old campy and classic like 80s horror and stuff like that. You don't like really care for. I mean, you're okay with meta, but like Scream was very meta, and that wasn't really your jam. This one, yeah, it's like Cabin in the Woods, but instead of it being just all-encompassing horror, it's mostly 80s, like campy horror.
Right. Yep.
And I think that's why I love this so much, because I love shitty 80s campy horror movies. Like
many of our listeners do, though.
That's my jam. I'm a big fan of the shitty 80s horror. And so like those B movies, man, I'm all about it. Like I texted you and I was like, I would 100% be Duncan in this movie. So there's no doubt about it. I would be Duncan. So I'm very excited to cover this movie. So Let's jump. I have my notes on my phone. I'm not texting people, guys.
This is 2021.
So-
If you're mad about him having your note on his phone, you could probably just stop the video now.
Don't stop the video though. Watch the whole thing. Listen to the podcast, guys.
I mean, I'm going to be mad about it, and I'm going to stop the video.
Alrighty. So, like I said, we're talking about 2015's The Final Girls, directed by Todd Strauss-Schulson, written by M.A. Fortin and Joshua John Miller. One of the funny things I want to say before we get into this is this movie stars, he's in it. He doesn't really star in it. Thomas Middleditch, and he has worked with this director before. And on the X-ray notes of Amazon movie, it said that when this movie was written, the director took it, gave it to him, and was like, pick any character you want.
I mean, he is great.
And he knew he was going to pick Duncan. He was like, I know you're going to pick Duncan, but pick any character you want. And he was like, I want this guy. And he's like, I knew it. I knew you were going to do that.
He was great.
He was fantastic.
My favorite character in the movie.
Absolutely. I kind of hate that he's not really in a lot of it. Like, he's only in like the first half hour or so, but he's great for what he's in there for. So, like I said, let's go down the cast list here real quick. We've got Taissa Farmiga, who I fucking love. She's fantastic in everything I've seen.
If you don't know her, then if you've seen American Horror Story, she's the daughter in season 1.
She's the daughter in season 1. Yeah, she is the not the nun in the Nun, but she's one of the main nun in the Nun. We've also got Malin Ackerman, who is another huge star. She was great in I love her from The Watchmen. That's mainly where I knew her from when I first saw this. Adam Devine, who also I love Adam Devine. It's hilarious because I saw a lot of comments about people hating on Adam Devine. So just like Adam Devine plays Adam Devine in this movie, but he's also just kind of like I don't want to say like Will Smith, but Will Smith plays Will Smith in movies. Yeah, it's kind of just that's who he's a comedian. I mean, if you can't go into this expecting...
Will Ferrell or Will Smith?
No, Adam Devine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he does.
So...
he is like, if you've seen him in anything, he's got like that. He does like the faces and like, he does like all those like weird
he
little.
He is perfect for this role because this movie, if you haven't seen it yet, this movie goes in and talks about these 80 horror tropes and talks about, how shitty some of these people were in 80s horror movies, especially the male bravado and like the macho men and everything. And he plays this character perfectly for it. So I couldn't see this being played by anyone else but him. Like I said, we've got Thomas Middleditch in this. We've got Aaliyah Shawkat, Alexander Ludwig, and Nina Dobrev in this movie. So a great cast list. I love all these people. It's also funny, too, that Alexander Ludwig was in a movie called Final Girl before this one. Or I think it was either before or right after. It was in the same time.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Zone.
That's cool.
Completely unrelated. Has nothing to do with this whatsoever. But he was in another movie called that. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and jump into this movie, guys. Spoiler alert in effect as of right now. If you guys have not seen this movie, go ahead, pause this, watch the movie. I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic film. You guys can always come back and watch this or listen to this whenever you are done watching that movie. It's a really easy watch. It's a super fun watch.
Yeah, it's like an hour and 25 minutes long.
Something like that, yeah.
And 8 minutes of that's credits.
Exactly.
It's fun. It's
a fun movie. Yeah.
I was big fan. Big fan.
So all right, Michael, let's go ahead and jump on into this.
You won't dive over the table. You wont dive over this table.
I will not dive over this table. You were absolutely right.
We'll call him a pansy in unison later.
Shush. Alrighty, so we have Taissa Farmiga. She is our main character in this film. We have Max Cartwright. So this movie opens with her waiting in the car for her actress mother, Amanda, who is played by Malin Ackerman, and she's auditioning for a film. When she returns, there's like this moment between her and Amanda where it's just kind of like, did you get that? Like Max is like, did it go well? And she's like, he'll let me know. Meaning like, no, it didn't go well. But I love their relationship. They have a great mother-daughter relationship, and it's truly, that is what this whole movie's foundation is built on, is their relationship, because what happens here next in like the next few minutes, and then also too throughout the rest of the movie, it's all completely built on the relationship. And if you didn't have that strong mother-daughter relationship here, I don't think this movie would have hit as hard or as done as well as it did.
Right. Yep, I agree.
Yeah. So they're talking about, Amanda's past as a movie actress, and all she's ever been in really is Camp Bloodbath. It's this shitty 80s slasher film. You know, and she plays a virginal girl who gets killed because she has sex with one of the characters and is killed right away. And that's kind of like the whole thing in this movie is if you have sex, you die. This movie, and I'm talking about The Final Girls, plays on the trope of every 80s horror slasher trope ever. Like, you have sex, it's bad. Think about Randy Meeks and Scream going down the list of things. Don't have sex. Don't drink. Don't do drugs. Don't say, I'll be right back. Because all those death sentences. So, you know, Amanda wants to be known for more than just being in Camp Bloodbath and being this slasher scream queen. That's what she doesn't want to be known as a scream queen. She wants to be known as something more successful and more famous than that. And so as they're driving off, they decide to go get food, and they're having this good time listening to Betty Davis Eyes. And I want to talk about this song because this song plays a crucial role in this film, more than just this scene here. Obviously, it comes in back to play at the end. But before we talk about the song, let me just finish this scene out real quick and get us into the movie, because as they're driving down the road, Max drops her drink, and Amanda goes to help her fix it. And she's like, oh no, those were expensive, and wrecks her car, and she is killed. And then we cut to 3 years later. But let's jump back real quick and talk about this song, because this song, I feel like, is so important to this film. It's so symbolic about everything, because if you listen to the lyrics of that song, it's basically describing Max's mom, I feel like. And also Max in a way. It's like 2 in 1, because Betty Davis is known for being very cynical in her films, like very sardonic and everything. But she was also extremely beautiful. And so I feel like it's a very good mixture of Amanda and Max together, because Max becomes very cynical after her mother dies. But Amanda was very caring and, you know, playful and fun and adventurous and beautiful. And so I think it's just they couldn't have picked a better song. I don't think for that to be their song in the movie. I
didn't even pick up on that.
So if you go back and look at the lyrics, I don't know. I dig too deep into things. That's my job on this show. Is to dig too deep into things. But I think it's just a great, you know, song to have for this kind of moment and for like the theme song of the movie. So, like I said, we cut to 3 years later on the anniversary of her mother's death. Max is meeting her friend Gertie, and one of the guys at school, she has a crush on Chris, to study for their classics exam. And again here, we have another moment that I feel like if you don't like catch on the first watch through, this is something I caught this time around. They're talking about the story of Persephone, which do you know anything about Persephone and Greek mythology and everything? Yeah.
That's what I picked up on too. They're
talking about Persephone, and I think it's very symbolic to Max and her mother's relationship, and also to kind of the whole movie in a way, because they get trapped in the movie just like Persephone gets trapped in the underworld. And she has to go through all these.
That's dang.
So I mean, you know, that's what I do, man.
I should have watched it again before I came on.
I mean, it's okay. So
that's a good point. I need to start doing that, because any movie, especially this one, it's 5 minutes into the movie, and there's already 2 times that you're like, this specific reference is foreshadowing for the entire movie. And I'm smart enough to know that they do those types of things, and I should have been paying attention.
No, you're good.
So.
It's one of those things, too. I've also seen this movie like 50 times. This movie's been out for, 6 years? 2015 was 6 years ago? Yeah, God.
Don't. We're old. We get it. Let's move on.
So, I've seen this movie a ton of times. So, but yeah. So they have the story of Persephone there. And as they're talking about this, Gertie's stepbrother Gertie's stepbrother Duncan walks in, and Duncan he's the best. I love him so much.
Like you said, you would be Duncan. He's like the nerd of the group. He's like the guy that wants to correct you, but in like a nerdy good way.
Yes.
He's like, this is what everything means, and this is how it should be. And he's like stuttering over his words, like to correct you in a way that's not offensive, because he's also super scared of confrontation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's that type of character, and it goes really well for the movie. So
yeah, I love his character. I think he's great for it. And he just walks in, and there's this funny scene between him and Gertie where he's just like, "You're my sister." She's like, "Stepsister." And he's like, when my dad said I was going to get a sister, I was so excited, and I didn't want it to be like this.
It's like, words hurt, but
words
okay.
Hurt, all right. But anyway, he's there to invite Max to the Bathaletes. annual showing of Camp Bloodbath. Both of them, Camp Bloodbath 1 and Camp Bloodbath 2. What's the sequel called? Cruel Summer.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, I'm sorry, what?
No, that was one of the things that, like, at this point in the movie, there's like, this is where at the beginning, whenever she's doing her audition and she comes in and she's like, all I've known is for this stupid horror movie. And then you get in your head, you're just like, this is just a shitty movie.
Right.
But then this is where it kicks off to where it was the beginning of her career, but there's like this juxtaposition between, it's like, she thinks it's awful, but then everyone else in the town, there's not people in this town that love it enough to fill a movie theater. And there might be people like from outside the town that, have come in to like watch it and things like that. They don't really go into that. But the point is like, in the beginning, I immediately thought, okay, this was just a shitty dump movie. This is just something as part of her backstory.
Right.
And then it switches to, okay, this isn't just a dump movie. It was just like it is now, B-rated horror movie that everyone fucking loves.
Honestly, how I saw it, because we didn't mention the movie was filmed 20 years prior to this movie starting. So that puts the movie being filmed around 91, 92 or so when this came out. If you take an effect that it was released in 2015. I honestly relate it to somewhat like Sleepaway Camp. It was a shitty B movie that wasn't really big when it came out, but became a huge cult following.
Right.
So that's what I kind of equate this to, with something like Sleepaway Camp. But nonetheless, Duncan is there to invite Max to come make an appearance at the presentation night of the movie for the Bathletes, which are just a group of people who really love Camp Bloodbath. And at first she's reluctant to go. Obviously, she's very cynical. She doesn't want to go see all these people who were there to watch her mother get killed on screen after, she's still tied up in this. It's been 3 years, but still, that's very rough no matter who you are. Especially someone as young as she is, because we're assuming she's in college. Like, I'm assuming she's like probably about 20 years old or so at the time of this movie starts. So she's reluctant to go, but Duncan says, I'll do all your classics work for you for the rest of the year. I'll finish all your papers, do all your work and everything, because Gertie told me you're failing. And so that's enough to get her to be like, okay, fine, I'll come to your stupid presentation and watch this movie. So reluctantly, she shows up and goes. And at the screening, we find out that she's there with Gertie, and Chris shows up, who, again, she has a crush on. And then comes in Vicky. So Vicky is Chris's ex-girlfriend, who is also Max's former best friend. And so it's just this awkward tension because Nina Dobrev plays the mean girl so well here.
Yeah, she's bitch. She's bitch.
She's
Bitch. Like, there's
because Chris is all about Max, and he's like, "You want me to go get you like a popcorn or something?" And Nina's just like, "I'm sorry." Vicky's just like, "I'll take what I used to get, my small diet soda and like a child's popcorn. Dump half of it out."
Yeah. You know what I like to dump half of it out. You remember.
And then she's like, "I'll just come with you. Don't worry about it." So she like is all over him, and it's this dynamic to where Vicky has some kind of vendetta against Max. We don't know exactly what it is yet. It's just we know they're no longer friends. She used to date Chris, and now it's just kind of like this awkward group that we have together here. Yeah. So they go to watch the movie, and it starts out, and I love the way they filmed this movie. And I'm not talking about Camp Blood, I'm talking about The Final Girls. I'm going to say, I'm going to have to like reiterate a lot during this.
Yeah, the movie within the movie.
The movie within the movie. Because the movie Camp Bloodbath is a character of its own. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting to see some of the shots they take in this film and some of the ways they do different things. I love everything about it. Like, there's a lot of like CGI put in this for different effects and things like that, but it actually works in this film. Like the way when the guy lights up the cigarette and when the guy drops the bottle of vodka, it all just like, it's CGI, but it looks, it's for a reason, because this movie's supposed to be kind of like, don't take it seriously.
Right. Yep. And I had noticed that too. I mean, I guess we can get into that. They start watching the movie, and then it's like panning around to different people's reactions and her reaction to seeing what's happening on the screen. And then it, like, you see someone smoking and people are drinking alcohol straight out of the bottle. And then, so the guy's drinking the alcohol, he puts the bottle down, drops it. And then it just like, it's like you said, there's a CGI scene where it just like rolls under the chairs and it's spilling like a trail of vodka, like all the way across the floor. and then it like hits the wall like where the curtains hit and just like splashes. And then a couple of seconds later, there's someone smoking a cigarette, and the cherry on the end of the cigarette falls.
Which again, here I'm so glad you called it a cherry, because that's the exact same moment where Max's mom's on screen about to lose her virginity, and there's the joke about Adam Devine's character having his cherry tattoo. Because
jeez, man, this movie.
So there's so many different like little like things that all tie together, and that's honestly okay. Obviously, this movie is not as like complex as Midsommar, but there's a lot to this movie. I feel like it's very layered.
Yeah, and I feel like the complexities come in the idea of what it's trying to meta itself to a horror, because I guess meta because it's like a movie in a movie,
double
so
meta.
Yeah, so a lot of the complexities come with those layers, but in and of itself, like before you even get to the movie, there's still these like little things that are tying it to these bigger horror tropes, smaller horror tropes, and then just these complexities in general. They're just really neat little fun bits.
And there are so many references to different 80s films in this movie, even some to 90s, and we'll get to that in a minute, because there's one reference I'm just like, they really went there with it, and it's at the very end of the movie. I don't want to talk about it yet. Remind me about references at the end, and I'll talk about it, because Lord knows I'm going to forget. But yeah, the guy drops the vodka. The guy, he's ashing a cigarette. It falls, catches the whole place on fire, and Max and her friends all go into a frenzy. The whole auditorium goes into a frenzy. Everyone in the theater goes into a frenzy. And Gertie asks if there's another exit behind the door or behind the screen. And Duncan says, yeah, there is. So someone in the audience drops a machete, which is very plot convenient that they have a legit machete in a theater, but they drop it.
Well, I mean, yes, but also there's like a bunch of people there that are like hardcore fans.
Right.
People, because a machete is like a big deal in the movie itself.
Well, that's what the main character or the main bad guy has.
Yeah,
a machete, yeah.
So that's how I justified it. It was like some nerdy kid is just like really is into the movie and brought a machete. He might have even been cosplaying. We don't know. Like,
there were people dressed up as Billy.
Well, there you go. That's where it came from.
But someone drops it. Max picks it up. Again, foreshadowing here. So Max picks it up. They slice a hole in the screen, go back through, lights flash, and that's where the movie kind of actually starts. Like, and by the movie, I mean the movie.
Yeah, when that, like, it was cool because whenever they like the I guess the CGI or the effects they had there, so when they like cut the hole in the curtain, it was like this bright portal like thing. So it's like, because whenever that happened, I obviously had no clue. I had no clue what this movie had in store for me. So I was just like, what the fuck is going on? So and then they cut that open. There was like this really bright light, and I was like, okay, that's the projector. Logically, right?
But the projector's from
exactly.
behind,
And then I was like, or it's not, because that doesn't make any sense. And then they woke up and I was like, oh, it's like magic.
It also too, if you go back and watch it again, when she cuts through the screen, it's the same moment when Billy kills her mom. So
I think I did pick up on that. So
again, it's just another, like, you know, it fits with the movie going through there. And I will say I like that because, yes, it fits with the convenience of Billy slashes machete down while he kills her mom, but it also ties in the fact that Max blames herself for her mother's death. So really, when she's doing that, she's killing her mother again.
Stop.
I'm just saying.
You're hurting me with all these knowledge bombs.
So think about it. Makes sense. So after they all step through the blinding white portal, they all wake up. Max, Chris, Gertie, Duncan, Vicky all wake up in the woods. And as they wake up, they start hearing, "Oh, Mickey, you're so fine, you blow my mind. Hey, Mickey. Hey, Mickey." Classic. And this yellow van comes down the road, and they all just stare in awe. I love this scene because this is legit, I feel like, how people would react if this actually happened. Like, they were just, what the actual fuck is going on?
It's like one of those, like, Volkswagen vans from, like, the 80s, I guess.
From the 80s, yeah.
But, were those, like, from the 70s, though? Like, they were older at that point in time.
Yeah, it was like a 70s Volkswagen van, yeah. But at the same time, too, we don't know when in the 80s this movie takes place. So it could, because, you know, just bled into the 80s a little bit.
Could we do we know, because they talked about the legend of Billy, But then they also said that took place in like the summer of like, was it
57.
57?
Yeah, I don't remember
So-
how many years have passed. Might have been 20 again.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So
I
that
think-
would have been
I think-
77. Maybe it was like 30.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, point is, no one gives a shit about how old this van is. My
The
bad.
van's old, okay? You get me on talk on these different tangents, man. So this is one of my favorite parts of the movie too, because the van comes down and you have Tina hang out the window and she says, "Anyone know the way to Camp Bluefinch?" And they're just like, they're just staring at it. And Duncan's like, "Tina." She's like, "Yeah, how'd you know?" I love Tina's character. She's so dumb-witted and like dim-witted and just bubbly. And the characters in this movie in Camp Bloodbath fit the tropes of 80s slashers so well.
I
Like they
agree.
each play an archetype.
I
so
think
well.
hers was like overdone though, and not at this point.
Yeah.
Later on, where she's like wearing the life vest and stuff, I'm just like,
I
why?
love that,
Like
though.
why?
I love it so much because she can't keep her clothes on. Okay?
No, I get it. It
because
was
she is the one in 80s horror movies who always gets naked. Like she,
right.
that's her
I
whole
knew that.
character,
My whole
yeah.
thing was just like, if she really wanted to, is she's so stupid that she can't get a life vest off. Like that's the idea. It wasn't the fact that Wyatt was on. It was how dumb she really was.
I feel like that might have been a reference to something because, for some reason, I feel like that was a reference to something where maybe Jaws, where someone falls over and can't get their life vest off in time, and Jaws just comes up, or Bruce, because his name actually in the movie is Bruce.
the shark's name is Bruce.
Yes.
Hell
well,
yeah.
the animatronics on set, they called him Bruce. So it's just been throughout the years, people just like, it's not Jaws, his name's Bruce.
I think it's big. I saw it when I was out in Orlando. I don't know if it's the exact one, but they have like a replica where it's like you get in like this little trolley and it goes into the water and the shark comes out.
So they actually,
And it's terrifying.
Universal, I
Yeah.
actually rode that ride. This is a quick tangent, real quick. They got rid of that. It's no longer, because they got rid of the Harry Potter world. So it's not there anymore. But I did get to ride it, and it scared the shit out of me because I'm horrified of water,
yeah.
deep water. And so I'm on the edge of the boat, and that motherfucker comes up, and it's just like, "Rrr." And I'm like, "Oh God!" And me being like 13 years old, I was just like, "Oh no, thank you."
This is a 6-foot pond.
There's also like a legit phobia for people who are afraid of underwater animatronics. I forget what it's called, but it's like a legit,
Underwater animatronics.
because there's a lot of underwater animatronics and they're always forgotten. Like go, it's creepy, guys. Go look this up. Forgotten underwater animatronics. They're all decayed and like everything because they just left them underwater for decades.
That makes
And
sense.
it's terrifying.
There's a whole like portion, a whole portion of like Disney that they built out on like those islands, and they just left them and they're abandoned and they're
I
like
know,
roped
right?
off and creepy.
It's
creepy,
terrifying.
Creepy.
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 But
Anyway.
yeah, back to this. So the van drives off for the first time, and everyone's just like, "What did that really just happen? Or what is going on here?" No one understands what's going on. And then we get a title card that says 92 minutes later. And then we hear the music again, "Oh Mickey," and the van comes back down, and Tina once again pops out. Does anyone know the way to Camp Bluefinch? And this time, I believe Duncan is the one who says, "Oh yeah, it's just right down the road. You know, follow this trail down here. You can't miss it." She's like, "Okay, great, thanks." And he sets a timer because he's like, "I've seen this, okay?" He knows this movie forward and backwards. So he sets a timer, and it says another 92 minutes later. And then it comes down the road once again. And he's like, "Okay, it's confirmed. We're in the movie."
Yeah, he's like counting down. He's like 5, 4, 3, and as soon as it's 1, you hear that. Hey,
Mickey, you're so fine. Yeah. He's like, "Okay, it's confirmed. We're in this movie now." And it's at this point that the group gets picked up because Chris says, "Oh, we're counselors. So why don't we go along with you? We're right down the road here." And so they get picked up, and I love the banter between the 80s kids and then like the modern day kids, because Kurt, who is Adam Devine's character, he's just like, "So where's your suitcases at, guys? Did you bring other clothes? Because the ones you got on right now are kind of..."
Yeah, because they're wearing like modern like 2000s clothes, and these are like, "Are you guys like poor kids?" Like,
And I love
he's wearing a crop top.
That's what I was gonna say.
my
I love
gosh.
Vicky's comment where she's like, "Says the guy wearing a crop top." Which
It's
honestly,
awful. It's awful.
It's hilarious though, because if you go back and look at those old 80s camp movies, the counselors wear crop tops. Like the guy counselors, that was like a fashion thing, I guess, back then in the 80s.
Honestly,
let's bring that back. I said that. I think I said that during the sleepaway camp episode. Hashtag bring back male crop tops 2021.
I was gonna say, for all you people viewing this for the first time, like this is the first time seeing, because I know we have a bunch of people we know that listen to the show.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people out there that don't know us that listen. This is the first time seeing our faces. Mm-hmm. I can tell you, having known Ryan for a few years now, if there's anyone that I've ever known that would wear a crop top and enjoy it and then rub it in everyone's faces like he was a vegan, this guy right here. So,
I mean, I do, I do rock
those are
the
croc
Crocs.
tops. All right.
Croc tops. Dude, rocking the Crocs with the crop top. All I'm saying.
I hate it. Thanks.
I know you hate them, but I love my Crocs, okay? Shout out to all the Croc wearers out there.
I don't hate Crocs. I hate his Crocs.
He does hate my Crocs. Anyway, they get picked up. They head out to Camp Bluefinch, and then as they arrive there, we get a title card that flies out in Camp Bloodbath, and we are officially in the movie now.
Well, there was the portion whenever she woke up in the back
right.
of the car.
I forgot about that part. Yeah, the big emotional part here because they
plays a big role.
They do arrive at the camp, and that's when Kurt says, "Someone wake up Sleepyhead back there," and that's when Malin Ackerman's character Amanda, aka in this movie Nancy, they all have like so many names. She wakes up in the back and she greets the new counselors. And we get this like kind of tearful moment between Max and her mother because it's the first time she's seen her mother in 3 years, and it's like in person, not just on the screen. And Nancy immediately is just like very kind, very warm. She's like, "Oh, so is this your first time away from home? It's okay. Don't worry. It gets better. It gets so much easier." And so she doesn't understand because obviously Max can't tell her.
Well, I don't think she said, and I think the only reason I bring it up because I think it's important. I think she says, "Is this your first time away from your parents?"
That's right, yeah.
And so that kind of it hits a little bit different.
It does, yeah.
And she's just like, I don't think she says anything actually.
She doesn't. She's just kind of like she's just sitting there like very teary eyed and everything, and it's just
So
and so that's when we arrive at the camp and we get the title card, Camp Bloodbath, and so. We then meet the rest of the other counselors. I believe the only one who we have Kurt, we have Tina, we've got Nancy, and then we've got Blake. And then they're waiting on Paula to arrive. There's another one, Mimi. Is that the other one? I believe her name is.
I have no idea. I don't even know who you're talking about.
She's the one who gets killed right in the beginning.
Oh, in the woods with the hiker. Okay, yep. I don't know what her name is, but I forget. Because she was in the movie for like 8 seconds.
I did not even take a note of that. Let me just go down here. It is Mimi. I was right. Okay.
Good job.
So they arrive at the camp, and we immediately get this just banter because Kurt's talking about how ugly all these kids' clothes are, and Tina just can't wait to get naked and have sex. There's a comment that Tina's already had sex twice in that one day. Yeah. And it's like, and I kind of find that funny because if you think about it in terms of the meta movie, the movie's played through twice before they get picked up in the van. So that's kind of a nod to it. This is the third playthrough of the movie. So Tina has had sex twice already. That's but true. Also, too, I just was like, a slight,
she's... Yeah. I don't know. With as dumb as she is, I feel like it should be a crime for her to have sex. Like, not because, like, people who are dumb can't have sex, but, like, I feel like people that stupid shouldn't be allowed to reproduce. I'm telling you, man, that scene with the life jacket burned me so hard.
We're gonna get there. We're not there yet. We're not there yet.
I'm sorry, okay?
So they realize they're in the movie here. They're waiting on Paul to show up. And it's at this point, Mimi walks by and says she's going to go pick some strawberries. And Kurt gives a very slight hand to something like, "I'll help you with those melons." Yeah. Because Kurt is just, your stereotypical archetypal, like, male. Like, macho male, horny, sex-driven male.
Gives us a bad name, really does.
But he plays that part so well.
He does. He's hilarious.
He is the male archetype in horror movies, and he does. Like, Adam Devine does a great job with it. So Mimi goes off, and Duncan says this is the part where she gets killed, so we should
go watch.
Go watch. Yeah. But before that happens, Chris asked for the keys from Kurt, and Kurt throws them into the woods. He's just like, you know what, Yeah.
Yeah, if you can leave if
you can go find the keys. Yeah, you can leave. You go find the keys. And yeets them into the woods. And so Chris and Vicky go to try to find the keys, and then meanwhile, Max, before they go talk to Mimi or go watch Mimi get murdered, there's a scene where Max talks to Nancy. She goes over because Nancy's hanging things up on the bulletin board, and she's talking to her, basically just saying, "Don't have sex, you're gonna get hurt." And Nancy's like, "You sound like my parents. You sound like, I'm old enough."
Ironic, by the way.
I know, right? She's like, and then Max is like, "Yeah, you sound like mine." So, but it's just a moment to where she's trying to protect her mother from dying in the movie. She's like, "Don't have sex because the second you have sex, you're gonna die." She knows the movie, so she knows how it's gonna play out. So she's trying to rewrite the movie here to save her mother. And that's when Duncan and Gertie kind of pull her away to go help Chris and Vicky find the keys. And that's just kind of left in confusion there. And then we cut over and we get to witness the first murder of the film. First two murders of the film, actually, because there's two people who die here. So all of them are behind this log, and Mimi's out picking berries, and she's startled by this hunky hiker, who is literally, that is his name in the movie. He is the hunky hiker, yes. And so the two of them go, start making out, and they, everything. And then we start hearing the iconic music of Billy approaching. And they're like, "Should we do something?" And I love Duncan's response here. He's like, no, this is like a nature preserve. Our job is to watch and let nature take its course. We should not interrupt whatsoever.
Which is kind of I had issues with this because I was like, that's kind of fucked up because I feel like that's the reason he I guess
his hubris is what kills him.
Yeah, because it's, you're here, these people are as real as you are in this moment, and you're just gonna sit there and fucking watch and let them die. I was like, I get it. I really did understand it, but at the same point, it was just like, you have the ability to change it. Yeah. And obviously that's what the rest of the movie is about. But it's like, I feel like that's the reason that you're like, his downfall is his pride, his knowledge, his hubris, I guess you could say.
But at this point too, I don't think they knew they could change the movie, because so far everything's played out the way it was supposed to. Nothing had been changed yet. So I guess. Obviously they had conversations with the characters that weren't in the film because they were new. So I guess they could have changed it, but I don't know. I get where you're coming from, but I'm also kind of just like, you know what? I also would be like him too, I think, and just be like, this is a movie.
You asshole.
I'm not saying I want people to die. I'm just saying I don't think.
You heard it here, folks. He wants people to die.
I'm just saying I don't think it would be like. I'd be like, this is a movie. This is not real. Okay, right, I 100% would agree with what Duncan says later on, to where until I get stabbed, I would be like, this isn't real. He can't hurt us because we're not actually in the movie. Right. So they're just characters, because all the actors are still alive except for Max's mother.
Rip.
But that wasn't because of the movie. So
right.
I don't know. That's just.
I get it. I was just like, that's kind of shitty. Like, if that were me, I'd probably try to do something.
Honestly, I probably would too, but still, I get where he's coming from with it.
Yeah, I probably would have been the first to die.
So you would have.
100%. Because I'd be like, this is ridiculous, and then I would have died immediately.
You'd just be the one who keeps walking down the road forever and being like, why am I still here?
Literally die of exhaustion before anyone else gets
Exactly. So regardless, they're watching Mimi and the hunky hiker make out, and as Mimi turns away to prepare herself for more making out and sex, Billy shows up, kills the hiker, and then ends up killing Mimi as well, and then throws her body to the group and just rolls over and dies in front of them.
What is it she says when she turns around? She goes,
where's the beef?
Where's the beef? Another classic timepiece.
Yes.
Where's the beef?
And then she's like, come on, guys. I said, where's the... And then she gets killed.
It was kind of gross, though, because it's the way... Because she has that, super high squeaky voice, and she's like, where's the meat? And I was just watching going, oh no, I don't like this at all.
It's another way to tie in a classic 80s reference to this movie. Just be like, where's the beef? Okay. But then she is killed, and everyone runs away except for Duncan. Duncan's like, no, guys, wait. this is part of the movie. He can't hurt us. We're fine. We're not actually in the movie here. He's like, I'm sure all their blood is just corn syrup. And he goes over.
Oh my
He goes
gosh.
over, touches her, and tastes the blood. He's like, nope, that's blood. That's actual blood.
Yeah, I also really liked the way this was filmed in the spot, because it was like there was this clearing in the woods, and the way that they were standing, they were like outside of the clearing, like it was its own set.
Right.
And then there was like this log that they were standing on the other side of. And then Duncan was standing like at the edge of the set, almost like he was explaining the movie. That's why I like so much about his character, was because he, like I said in the beginning, he was the guy that had to logic everything through for everyone else, and that nerdy dude that everyone's just like, no one gives a shit, like all the time.
Yep.
But in that moment, like everyone was listening to him, and that's like
Because
you said,
it's his soapbox moment. He is the one who has the knowledge in this moment, and they're just like, okay, what do we do, Duncan?
yeah. And I loved how they set it up, because there was like everything happening in the back was behind the logs and in the woods, and there was like this clearing that opened up into like a field with light in the background that all the people, the viewers, the four of them were standing watching, while Duncan was like on the stage in front of the log giving like his dialogue. I thought that was really cool. Really well done.
I love, like I said, I love, there's a lot of different things in this movie that I love, and that's just one of the subtle nuances about it. That's great, because it like somewhat separates them from the movie, because they're there but they're not actually in the movie, so they're like on the movie set, but it's not like in the shot you see when you actually watch the film.
Right.
So it's just, it's something cool like that. Yeah,
Loved it.
and so Duncan stands up and starts talking about, they're safe, they're not actually in the movie, they can't be killed by Billy, because he's just standing behind him the whole time. I love that shot. Duncan's standing there talking, and Billy's just behind him, just the whole time.
They did this so well too, because obvious, like I'm watching this and I'm like, well, he's fucked. Like I'm like, he's gonna die. And then like, so he's standing there talking about why he won't kill him, and then Billy just kind of strolls away.
He just strolls away. Yeah, but not before they're like talking about how they're in the movie, and one of them, I don't remember who, someone says, well, how do we get out of this? And Duncan gives us our line, that's in our theme song here, and this, my favorite part of the movie. He says, movies like this end when the final girl kills the main bad guy and the credits roll. And so they're like, okay, so we have to kill the main bad guy. Then who is the final girl? And that's when he explains Paula is the final girl, because she's the only virgin at this camp. And so therefore she is the only one, able to be the final girl. And so you're right. At that point, Billy just kind of walks away. And he's like, he goes to get a selfie with him. Yeah, he goes to take a selfie with Billy. And Billy just walks away. He's like, see, we're fine. And he's just sitting there talking. And all of a sudden the machete comes out of nowhere and just guts.
Yeah, not
Duncan.
even like, it literally flies through the air and sticks in his side. And I don't even know if that throw would be possible.
I don't think it would be.
That's just ridiculous.
It's another one of those, like, it honestly is, it's, just like the 80s horror movies where Jason and Michael Myers have so much just inhuman strength.
Yeah.
So he threw that thing and it literally like almost bifurcated him with how much it went into
Big
him.
word.
I know, right? Look at
Bifurcated, guys.
So-
no one watching this knows what that means. Good job.
So Duncan is killed, unfortunately. My favorite character in the whole movie.
Rip.
Although honestly, there's not a character in this movie I don't like. So it's just Duncan was definitely my favorite of all the characters. So they all decide to run back to the group, and this is the part of the film where things get weird for me, because it's like there's not really a lot going on, because they're just kind of following along with the movie. They don't even tell everyone that Duncan was killed or that Mimi was killed. They're just like, we can't disrupt this, like, what they're here to do.
Right. Well, so that was actually a point I wanted to bring up, and that's why I think when this movie was written, not the Bloodbath, the actual movie, The Final Girls was written, that's why they killed Duncan first, was because his character was leading them and took on the role of like head nerd, king nerd, and was leading them through going, you need to watch this is what's going to happen. And if he was still alive, it would have made it hard to make the movie more interesting.
Right.
So his character needed to die in order for the plot to progress in the other direction.
Because the others really had no idea what was going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to make the movie at that point, they could have even followed, and they relatively do. They follow the plot of the regular movie, but there's variations that they cause because they don't have Duncan there stopping them from what they should and shouldn't do. So I think that's another reason why his character just had to die first.
That's fair. I understand that. Yeah. Because they have to go through this kind of like tribulation alone now, because if they weren't, Duncan would have probably held them back from doing what they
Exactly.
did next.
Yeah, exactly.
He'd have
And
been
then-
like, no, let them have sex. Don't tell them not to have sex. Let them do what they want to do. And then, we'll just stick with Paula because she's the one who gets out of here alive. So that's, I gotcha. We do get some more characterization in this moment here, though. We learn, more about... we have this kind of talk between Chris and Kurt. Kurt's reading Playboy and talking about all like the hot chicks in there. And Kurt's like, yeah, I'd read some of those articles in there. And that's when Kurt then calls him gay, but uses a more inappropriate term. And Kurt's just like, Chris is like, easy there, my dads are gay. And this is where we get more of the 80s, like the macho, like, homophobic 80s, because that's really what all these movies were about in like the 80s. He's just like, there's no way. Like, gay guys don't have gay guys don't have kids. They just go to discos and have sex. He's like, that sounds like a pretty good life, actually.
See, I actually had thought that when he said that was like a really subtle hint that his like over masculinity was pointing to the fact that he was actually gay.
Well, I think that's kind of what they're hitting at, is that, a lot of, and again, this is a very subtle thing, that a lot of like very overtly homophobic people have those gay tendencies, and they're repressing them so much, therefore they hate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That.
And it's not that they're, and not to get like philosophical, but it's, or really off topic to the movie,
Exactly.
but like this character, the way that he is, I think it's not that they're like making him, it's like, well, his character is homosexual. It's like, he's so macho that just by saying that, it like opens up the door to like creating just a small little bit of maybe there's more to the character than like, or why he's really like this. So,
yeah.
And other thing I didn't know, because I know we touched on it, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because it's kind of like the forbidden fruit, but he uses a very harsh slang. And was that okay for this time? I'm not saying it was ever
Like in the
okay.
80s,
I'm not saying it was okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I mean was, whenever this movie came out in 2015, because a couple of years, it wasn't that long ago that people said that all the time, and it was, again, not that they should have, but
No, I know what you mean.
did they put it in there because it was an 80s thing, or was it in there because like it was socially quote unquote acceptable at that point in time?
I think it was put in there because it was a very heavy 80s thing. You go back and watch a lot of those old 80s movie, anytime anything remotely homosexual happens, they drop the F word.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I think it was done to represent that time period. And again, too, I think this was a way to do that because they're satirizing that time period for using that language and saying, obviously it's not right, it's not okay to say stuff like that. And so therefore no one came for Adam Devine for saying that. It's a lot like Adam Driver in Black Klansman. He drops the N-word with a hard R, but he's there playing a character satirizing and showing how wrong racism is.
Right. Yeah.
So
well, my point in bringing that up is I really enjoyed how they handled it. Like it added a depth to the movie because the movie's funny. It's meant to make fun of horror. But then you have little scenes like this that you can dive into that really shed light on social issues and things that, how people behaved back in the day versus how they are now. It really shows that, I use this word a lot today, but the juxtaposition and how people have changed and what's good versus what you shouldn't do.
Oh, absolutely.
And
yeah.
it was really cool to see is my point.
No, absolutely. I think, and that's why I wanted to bring that scene up because I think it does, its job with what it needs to do, therefore satirizing those 80s movies for using stuff like that and saying things like that. Because it was just a different time. People
Bad 80s.
Bad 80s.
Don't say those words.
Bad 80s. So time passes again. Max talks to Nancy, again, like don't have sex. Don't have sex with Kurt. It's no big deal. And Nancy's kind of like, well, I came here this summer to lose my virginity. I wanted to, grow up, so to say, in a way. And so they have more conversations about that. And eventually we lead to a kumbaya circle. And I love this scene because
what a weird scene.
They're all sitting around. Everyone in the 80s, like in Camp Bloodbath, the actors are all singing the song, and then it pans around and it's like rotating shot of like Chris, Max, Gertie, and Vicky. They're all just like, what is happening? Again, they're all just so confused because, and this scene 100% here is reminiscent of Friday the 13th. The opening scene of Friday the 13th is from like. It opens on a group of camp counselors singing Kumbaya. So that's what this scene is referencing here. And it's just funny again because no one sits around and plays guitar and sings Kumbaya. Like no one does that.
Well, I just thought it was interesting too because like you're in the moments before this, like you have all this talk about like sex and these sex jokes and stuff, and then they're like singing "Kumbaya, my lord" like 8 seconds later, and it's like, what? Like, come on.
Yeah, again, more juxtaposition there at this point.
I love that word. You can use bifoliated or whatever.
Bifoliated.
No, I don't know what you said. Nobody knows, but no, you didn't know what he said. Don't at me, bro.
I said bifurcated.
That's not a word.
You can look it up while I finish up what I'm trying to say.
I don't need to use the dictionary to prove that you're an idiot.
Okay. Anyway, as they're singing Kumbaya, we finally have the arrival of Paula, who is our Camp Bloodbath final girl. She is this badass bitch who's just like, I'm, here to kick ass and chew bubblegum. I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah. So she shows up, and it's funny because like her first line's like, "Oh, did I miss the Kumbaya circle?" And so she shows up, and Vicky's just like, "We just need to hang out with her. She's the one who survives. We need to stick with her. That way we don't die."
I thought that was super weird, though. The final girl of the movie doesn't show up till like 35-40 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
So now I don't know at what point in the movie Camp Bloodbath is actually the beginning, though. You know what I mean? So it could have been like the movie could have opened like Friday the 13th did with them singing at the Kumbaya circle, and then she shows up about 30 seconds into the movie. So we really don't know. But from my perspective, I guess I was like, okay, that's weird. But now that we're really talking about it, I get like
at the point of the final girls movie, she shows up about 35 or so minutes in. So it's been about 30 minutes before she finally shows up. But when she does show up, they all hang out with her because she is going to be the movie's final girl. And during this time, Gertie bonds more with Blake. They have kind of like this little moment with each other, and they start talking about. Oh, I completely forgot to mention. After Duncan dies, they all run back, and we have that panning shot where the camera just spins around in circles because they can't escape. Remember, they can't.
Oh, right.
They can't leave. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. That's my fault.
So you were saying earlier how I would be the guy that would run across and then like run back, and I said I'd die of exhaustion. What we missed earlier was that
exactly, yeah.
The when they run out after Duncan died, they run like across.
They run out, and like there's Blake and Tina standing out there. I don't remember what Blake says. He says something like, "Oh, you're just back in time for the Kumbaya circle," or something like that. And they run past him, and then it spins around. Tina's like, "Oh yeah, you came back," and it spins even more, and it shows them come out the same exact path they were just coming out of.
Yeah.
So that happens like 3 times. It's just like a big circle, and I love it because knowing a little bit about cinematography, I'm sure you have that gimbal down there. It's just a guy with the camera strap or like a chest strap gimbal just spinning in a circle like the entire time. So,
Yep. Yeah, and obviously like it's symbolic of the fact that like they're trapped in the movie world and there's no world outside of the little circle that they're in.
They are stuck in Camp Bloodbath. There's no escaping it from this point, and that's when they kind of realize, well, there's no out until the movie ends. They have to make it through the entire movie, and then there's a possibility of them escaping.
Yep, it's like an old Mario game. It's like you run
Exactly.
off the side and you run back on the other world, and you're like, what the fuck is going on?
It's like Pac-Man. It's just like you run off one side and then you come back. Exactly. Yeah. We're just referencing
Video
old
games.
video games. Yeah, video games. So back to what I was saying. They all hang out with Paula, and it's at this point we get the flashback scene, and this is the point where Nancy starts telling us about Billy Murphy's background, and so she starts talking about how it was 30 years ago or whenever it was like 1957. And I love the effects in this scene. I love how they film this because the walls just start dripping, and like it looks like Pagemaster.
Yeah, and it's like this like I like these like translucent
like,
pillars and stuff, and it's like falling down like water almost. It's weird how it does it, but it does it really
looks
good.
Great. It looks great, yeah. And so they get transported back in time to the flashback, and it's this funny moment to where Gertie's just like, "Why am I colorblind all of a sudden?" And they're like, "Oh, it's a flashback, so it's all black and white." And I love how they have to step over the summer of '57.
Yeah,
like the title card that's in there, and the car goes by and plays the Lollipop song, and you hear Nancy's voice in the background dictating or narrating what's going on, talking about Billy's backstory, and then talking about how like no one really knew much about Billy Murphy, but he was picked on a lot during summer camp, and to escape it, he went into an outhouse, and they threw fireworks in on him, causing him to get third-degree burns, and he ran off into the woods and spent 8 months in the hospital for like burn like you know
in
injuries.
the burn ward.
Yeah, and so he then returned and killed one person for every month he spent in the burn unit, and so that began his killing spree. He comes back every summer to make sure no camp like counselors are here. So it's just like Jason. Like it's an homage to Friday the 13th again because it's you know Jason was bullied by people. He drowned in the lake because the counselors were having sex, and now he comes back to kill the counselors.
Hey.
So this is the kind of backstory we get. But during the backstory, Gertie is sprayed with blood from one of the victims of Billy. And so when they come back to the present day, or like the 80s present day, she still has that blood on her face, and that scares everyone. They're like, what? Oh no. And so they all like freak out and panic, and they run off because they basically tell him Billy's here. Billy's here to kill everyone. We have to get out of here, basically. But we can't leave. So we have to get out, but we can't leave.
Well, I think that they also like did that whole thing because they needed the ability to show that they could bring things back from the flashbacks.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
which they used later on.
They do use that. It's a plot device. Yeah. But regardless, Paula and Kurt to get into Paula's car to drive off. And they're like, no, wait, Paula, you're the final girl. You have to stay with us. And she's like, I'm out of here. This is not. Nope. I'm leaving.
And of course, Kurt.
And
in the
Kurt,
car.
yeah, just he gets with the So he gets in there with her, and as they're driving off, Duncan comes back out of the woods because he's still alive.
He's on his
He's
side. He's like, guys, I'm not dead.
I'm not dead. And Paula hits him with her car, which kills him for good now. And as she hits him, she wrecks into the totem pole, and Kurt flies through the window. And
this was pretty grotesque.
It was a grotesque death. Yeah, he's like skids across the ground with his legs bent up over, like looks like a scorpion.
Yeah, it was gross.
Yeah,
it was gross.
it's
But let me just say this: Adam Devine, hella thick. That dude's got a booty. I didn't notice it. Then I got to that scene and I was just like, why is this dude's ass like so rotund? Like, sorry, you used a big word. I gotta use a big word. He has a rotund booty.
Yeah.
And
he
I
do
thought
be thick.
He do be a thick maybe a fourth C.
Oh,
Who
no.
knows?
The elusive fourth C.
Adam Devine, fourth C. Just throwing it out there. You heard it here,
You
folks.
heard it here first. Adam Devine, 4 C's. All right.
But yeah, it was like this weird like bend over, and it's like in that moment, no doubt he wasn't coming back.
No, he did. Yeah, and then Paula's like looking around. She's like, "I'm still alive." And then at that moment, the car explodes. And then she died. And so it's funny because it's ironic because you're like, wait, she's supposed to be the final girl. And everyone, like Chris, Max, Vicky, and Gertie are all just like, well, shit, now what are we going to do? Because she was the final girl. Now she dead. And so this is where we get this moment here where they're all talking. They're just like, well, the only true blue virgin that we have is Max. Max has never had sex. We get this kind of awkward scene between Gertie and Max where she's like, Gertie's
I thought you were a virgin.
Gertie's like, no, I had sex, like last summer or something like that.
Dude, that was super weird. And the girl was like, wasn't that guy autistic?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, but he had a nice personality or something like that. And I was just like, this is weird. Like,
and that right there is the moment I feel like we get into the 2000s taboo jokes to where it's like we're making fun of autistic people now rather than gay people. Like the 80s is all about making fun of the gays and everything.
Well, see, and that goes like we were talking about earlier about how culture changes because like now in the 2020s we understand there's a spectrum, there's different levels and things like that. So it's like you really do have to like pick and choose what you find humor in because like some people that I know would look at that and laugh and be like that's stupid, and
some people get
and then some people get upset and rightfully so. Like they have a right to be, but like this movie covers like a bunch of different like times of comedy, and you really have to pick and choose like what's for you and what isn't. It could be offensive to some, but some of it's for you.
And I think all of the offensive things are done to a point. They're done for a reason to kind of prove this is not okay to make fun of. But
yeah.
But
I still thought it was kind of weird though because it didn't hold any value to the movie at all, and I was like, why even put that in there? And it's the same as what we talked about before with what Adam Devine's character said, that it was kind of like questionable.
Yeah,
it's just like that's what I'm saying. It's like they're hitting on just different things, cultural points, quote unquote, that are reminiscent of like the timepiece. Because like I said, now we know that just because you're on the spectrum doesn't mean, because there's definitely a scale.
Exactly.
So.
And I wonder too if potentially this, I don't know. Again, I'd have to go back and watch again because I never really paid attention much to this. Because after that comment is said, like Blake and Gertie kind of become a thing. And so I wonder if maybe it's a tie-in to perhaps Blake being like, oh, I'm also different and people have been treating me weird. So maybe like you aren't going to make fun of me because I, have these, quirks.
Okay. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
So maybe that's what that was meant to be. I don't know though. I'd have to go back and pay attention more to Blake's character and see if potentially he is displaying like signs of being on the spectrum or something.
I don't recall anything,
I don't recall
but like
really either.
I know his teeth are nasty as hell.
His teeth were all messed up, yeah.
That was kind of gross, but other than that, no, I didn't notice anything.
But regardless, they have that scene, and then we realize now that Max is going to be our final girl. And so in order to kind of like keep everyone safe, they decide to set a trap. They're going to keep everyone safe and make sure no one has sex. And this is where we get Tina dressed in her life jacket and her oven mitts that you love so much.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like there's more again too. I'm not going to go super in depth in a lot of these scenes because there's a lot here that I'm skipping over that's done for character development. So if you guys haven't seen this movie yet at this point, you should be watching it because there's a lot in between these scenes I skip over done for character development. Like we talk about, there's a scene with like the phone where Tina's like playing with Vicky's phone and she's like, what is this? And she's like, oh, it's a phone. She's like, huh, that's funny.
Yeah,
It's
she was
not
like, this
plugged
is
into
a weird
anything.
cassette tape. And she's
Yeah.
like trying to put her iPhone into like an old cassette.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of that divide there. So they decide they're going to lure Billy in by having Tina perform her striptease. But before they can do that, they have to make sure she stays safe long enough to do that. They have to wait for sundown because that's when the sleepover scene happens. And so when sundown comes, they can unleash Tina basically and lure Billy in to trap him and kill him. So they set all these traps. They have like a bear trap set up. They have, I believe, a big log they hang up to like hit him out the door.
Yeah.
They've got flaming arrows set ready to go. And they've also got a bucket of gasoline set ready to blow him up and kill him. Just a lot of traps. Basically, it's like a big like Rube Goldberg kind of setup here they have. And yeah, this is where we get into your favorite part about Tina not being able to take off her gloves or anything. Because she's wearing like a life jacket and she's got two oven mitts taped around her hands. And I don't remember what they do. They all like do something and Tina goes to like snap her fingers or do something. She's just like, can't do it because she's got the oven mitts on her hand. I'm just like, oh my God. Okay. Yeah. She's,
Well, and then there's a part before where they talked about it a few times where I don't remember her name, but the friend Vicky, she has Adderall.
Yes.
And like she needs it to function essentially. They get that strong vibes from that. And then she also has like a really good memory apparently that she said isn't to have to do with the Adderall. But then Tina
gets into it.
All of the Adderall.
Takes the entire bottle of Adderall.
And turns into kind of a badass for a few seconds. So.
It's hilarious. She's very crazy and like zany. And it's right before her big dance scene, which by the way was ad-lib. Like it was completely improv. The actress who did that was completely improv. And it said on the thing that she drank just a bunch of energy drinks to get her in the mood for doing that. Because they're not going to actually take a bunch of Adderall. So she just chugged a bunch of like monsters. And then was just like,
Adderall may have been better for you.
So we'll just skip forward to the scene here at the trap because, Tina's high on Adderall and she's going crazy. And so night falls and Max is just like, all right, it's time to unleash the beast. And they're like, all right, Tina, hit it. And they start playing Cherry Pie. She's my cherry pie. I love that song though. And we get this great dance from Tina as she starts taking off her oven mitts and ripping off her life jacket.
Yeah, and it's like the stereotypical like doors open so they can see Billy's coming, like in wide open field, fog in the distance, and like the woods and the weeds and stuff like that. Just super campy, classic.
Campy, creepy, yeah. And we finally get to where she's down to just her bikini top and she looks around. The camera cuts close up to her chest here, and she flashes the woods, and it's at that point Billy shows up. As soon as her boobs are out, Billy shows up, and
what a pervert!
I know,
what
right?
a pervert!
and she kind of panics and freaks out. She's like, he's here, and he's also a lot closer than I expected him to be, because he was really far away. Then he's all of a sudden on top of her.
Yeah, that's something this movie does a lot.
It does a lot of.
They have a lot of time jumps and a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense.
And I wondered about that, because there's a lot of continuity errors, and I wondered if they did it on purpose to stick with the 80s cliche that there's a ton of continuity errors in 80s movies.
Probably.
I would say that's probably what.
Yeah.
Because some of these errors, like later on, whenever they're in the chapel and Chris is there, then he's not there, then he shows up randomly. Yeah. It's just like, okay. And there's also the scene too. Just so I'll say it now so I don't forget about it. Later on, when Max is holding the lantern, she knocks over that jar, and then she catches the jar with the same hand the lantern
Yeah, dude,
had.
I was like, what?
She also has a machete in her hand, so she's like, it's like, that's not possible whatsoever, but okay.
Well, they do those things in like big movies too.
Oh, no,
like,
I know.
Like
yeah.
Lord of the Rings has a scene where it's like Aragorn in like the first movie after they're taking Frodo to Rivendell. He's holding a torch and a knife, and then he goes to cut the flower. He grabs the weed and he cuts it. So he's got 3 hands all of a sudden where he's holding a torch, a knife, and weeds. And I'm like, what? But yeah, dude, the thing in the church where he's not there, that and then the jar. We'll talk about the jar.
We'll talk about that later on.
Super big, like weird thing.
Oh yeah. So needless to say, Tina panics at this point because Billy is right on top of her, and they're like, "No, Tina, calm down. It's okay. We got this." But she freaks out. She runs back, trips over the tripwire, and falls headfirst into a bear trap, killing her.
I lost it.
It's a funny.
And they don't like zoom in on it.
No, it's
but
not gruesome whatsoever. So like you think her head falls into a bear trap, it's gonna be super gruesome. It's not. She trips over a wire, falls, and then boom. And it's done for a comedy purpose. It's not done for like a gruesome, gross effect like most horror movies would. This is more like okay.
Yeah, it's honestly like at the bottom of the screen. They're not even focusing on it. You just see her trip and her body just goes limp, and you're like,
you just see the trap kind of set, and it's just like, okay, so what an idiot. And then at that point, Blake and Gertie cut the line for the log. It goes down. Chris shuts the door, and Billy is thrust back onto a bunch of antlers that are on the back of the door, and he's impaled onto those. And so they all start celebrating. They think, great, Billy's dead. We've done it. And so Blake walks up to Billy's corpse, not before telling Gertie he loves her. Mind you, we have this, they just defeated the bad guy. We have to do the whole I love you thing now.
And that's when he shows his really nasty teeth. And you're like, why do his teeth look like that? Like,
he's got like braces and everything. It's just like I don't know, characterization, I guess. But he walks up to go grab the machete out of Billy's hand, and that's when he gets killed.
I love how they do that scene too.
It like spins the whole camera around, so it's like
because
it throws you to very much like a Vertigo effect. It's kind of like because it is supposed to be kind of like a disorienting scene, because literally a lot of people die in this scene, so it's just very a disorienting moment. So.
I liked it.
But yeah, I love the way they film it. But yeah, Blake gets stabbed. He falls back dead, and Billy pulls himself up off of the antlers, and that's when I believe Nancy and Max shoot the fire arrows. And I think all 3 of them have bows and arrows, the fire arrows in them.
That would make sense, because by the time they get upstairs, he has like 6 arrows.
He's got a bunch of arrows in him. Regardless, characters start shooting flaming arrows at him, and they all run upstairs. And Vicky and Gertie try to pull the bucket of gasoline down, but it doesn't. It's stuck. They can't get it. And that's when Billy walks in and slams basically kind of like a cabinet like this down on top of them, and stabs Gertie through the back with his machete.
Yeah, so she says like she's stuck and they can't get out of it. And
and it's a very kind of sad moment, because one of the scenes I didn't talk about earlier was a scene where Vicky, Gertie, and Max had kind of like this rekindling moment between 3, because Vicky was talking about how when Max's mom died, she just was very distant. She shut her out completely, and it was very hurtful for Vicky. Because Max was her best friend, and Max just completely cut her out of her life, and then became best friends with Gertie, and so that was even more of a slap in the face. And so then Gertie and Vicky had this moment to where Gertie admits to spreading rumors about Vicky, and Vicky admits to spreading rumors about Gertie.
That was kind of a gross rumor.
Yeah,
I'll throw it out there.
That hurt.
Like I live with women. I have like a daughter that's almost a teenager, and these are conversations I'm gonna have to have. But that was just like, why would you say that? Like, and she even comments on it. She was like, that was brutal. And she's
that
like,
was
thank
a brutal
you.
rumor. She's like, yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. So we did have this kind of rekindling moment, and I do like this because it's at this point Vicky says, you know, I'm the mean girl in the 80s horror movie. My time has come. I'm not surviving this movie. She like kind of accepts the fact that she's been a bitch, and so like she's like, yeah, I my time has come. I just wanted to apologize and make amends here, and it is a great moment in this. That's why if you've not seen the movie or you haven't watched it yet, go please do that, because it's these little emotional scenes that make this movie so strong. The characters are so fucking good in this movie.
They are. They're really good. And this little scene where she's talking about how she can't escape her archetype is very pivotal to, I feel, the overall theme of this movie.
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
It's very, very well done.
Because even
Very well done.
even the 2000s characters play into the archetypes. It's just we have the 80s archetypes and the early like the 2000s archetypes now, because obviously we don't have the same archetypes that 80s have. So it is true. Yeah, she plays into this whole like I can't escape who I am, and then therefore she gets pinned underneath the shelf. And so she's therefore can't escape. She's pinned. She's trapped. And so, and so again, we have this scene here with Gertie and Vicky trapped underneath the shelf. Gertie has been stabbed with a machete. She's dying. Vicky grabs her hand and holds her hand and tells Max and Chris and Nancy to get out the window. So they all jump out the window, and as they do, Vicky pulls the cord, dumps the gas on Billy, and there's a big explosion, killing Vicky and Gertie for good, in an act of martyrdom. And so it's honestly a very emotional scene. It's great. I want to feel sad for characters when they die in horror movies, and this does it for me.
Yep.
Even someone that we didn't like in the beginning, like Vicky, she has that great redemption arc, and when it comes around to this, she sacrifices herself so her friend can escape. And it's great. I love it.
It's good literature in cinema, because it's like if
yeah.
someone dies and you thought they were an asshole the whole time, it's like, unless they did something, because like you can be a prick in personality, but typically when those people die, they do something in movies or in literature or something that like is so overwhelmingly bad that you're like, this person needs to fucking die now.
Yeah.
And they still get more time before they finally meet their demise. That's so satisfying. But like when you have a redemption like this, they have to die shortly after their apology before like it, because you have to give it just a few seconds to take effect.
Right.
And it's like, no, okay, bye.
Yeah. This is essentially the redemption arc that Jamie Lannister was having before Game of Thrones is like, nah, screw it. Yeet. Sorry for ruining Game of Thrones for anyone who's not seen the end of it.
Oh God.
It's so bad. Regardless though.
Can we have a Final Girl episode about the horror that was the end of Game of Thrones?
Yeah, sure. You guys want to see that? Let's talk about that. But regardless, Vicky and Gertie are killed and the explosion, and then we get another great scene here where Nancy, Chris, and Max all jump out the window, and it becomes slow motion. Like the world just turns into slow motion.
I love this.
And they're
scene.
all talking in slow motion and everything, and they're like, "What's going on?"
And she's like, slow motion.
And it's at that point Billy jumps through the window,
which is fucking awesome.
It's a great.
This was
it's
so cool.
good. It's so great. I love it. It's so epic because he just jumps through the window. He's got his machete in his hand. He's caught on fire, and he just in slow motion jumps and does this like the superhero land on the ground.
Listen, I was watching this. The only thing I could think of, and I know it was like it just needed to look cool in this moment, but I was like, why is his machete on fire? There's no blood on it. The gasoline would have burned off instantly. It's metal. This thing should not, and yeah, it's flaming the entire time. And I'm like, this makes no sense.
It has to look dope, man.
That's what I mean. I'm like, this is literally done just to be cool. And like in the back of my mind, I'm like, why can't I just enjoy things? Like I am just that guy right now. I mean, I am Duncan right now in this moment.
That's why he dies early.
Fuck me, right?
But no, you think about it though, and it's 100% what they would have done in an 80s movie.
Oh yeah,
I'm pretty sure that
they would have done that now.
Pretty sure that happens in like Friday the 13th part like 3. He catches on fire and his machete's on fire.
It
like,
literally makes no sense. The handle may have been on fire if it was. You know,
made of
whatever.
Horror
movie gonna horror.
Horror movie got a horror. Okay, so
that should be like on a T-shirt or something. We say that
make
all the
some
time.
merch that says horror movie got a horror.
Horror got a horror.
So regardless, they have this like slow motion chase scene through the woods. And as Max, Nancy, and Chris jump across this little creek, everything snaps back into normal speed. And it's at this point they remember about things being able to be taken back and forth between the flashbacks. So Max says, "Quick, tell the story about Billy again. Tell us like his origin story."
Right before he
kills them, yeah. And so she quickly starts telling them it, and they go back in time. And Billy's taken back with him, and I love this part because he gets hit by the car as it drives in.
I love that. And then also like the words like summer 1954, whatever it is, get hit, and they just like these letters just get scattered across the grass. And I'm like, that is so good. That was such good creative.
And that's why I love this movie so much, because of the creative editing and things like that it takes. This movie, you know what this reminds me of, is a horror Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, I had thought that too, especially like later on in the fight scene in the field, and I was just like, this is giving me some strong Scott Pilgrim vibes.
This is a horror comedy Scott Pilgrim. Yeah,
I love that movie.
That movie's so good. That movie's like top 5. I love that movie. Anyway, so Billy gets hit and his machete flies out, and Max is able to take the machete. And I wanted to note here, she says when she picks it up, "God, this thing is so heavy," and that's important for later on. So I want to note that. She says how heavy it is, and then they look up and Billy's gone. And so the story gets retold again about Billy, and there's this joke about how Nancy's like, "God, do I really sound like that?" Because she hears her voice in the narration over.
A lot of meta.
It's again, like triple meta at this point, yeah. And then they follow Billy into the woods, and they finally find out where he goes, and they find his hideaway in the woods. It's a part of the camp that no one's ever seen before.
I love this because it's like, it just makes fun of like the killer's hideout thing, because it's like, this has been there the whole time. No one's ever seen it. Like in the 20, 30 years people would come in this camp, no one's ever seen this fucking thing.
And it's a giant cabin too. How do you
huge,
not
bigger than any other building in the show. Like,
but it's because it's off in the middle of the woods by the lake. No one knows it's there.
This is ridiculous. But that's that horror movie gonna horror.
So they find that. And then eventually they get caught back up with the adult Billy. And so she's like, "Quickly wrap up the story. Come on, finish it up so we can cut back to normal." So she finishes it up. They snap back into the 80s section of Camp Bloodbath. And Billy is now gone. But as they start talking, they're like, "Okay, we're finally safe." Chris then gets stabbed.
Yeah. And which is funny because immediately when they get out, she's like, we shouldn't just hang out here. We need to go. And then they just don't go.
Yeah, and that's when he gets stabbed. And as Max is tending to Chris, Billy takes Nancy and starts carrying her off into the woods. And so Max is like, "I have to go after her. I can't let her go." And we get this moment with Chris where he's like, "Let her go. It's a movie, Max. It's not actually your mom. She's a character. She doesn't know that she's your mother."
Right.
And it's this weird kind of like, moralistic debate between Max and herself, where she's just like, "Do I just let him kill my mother again, or do I, go? I can't." And she ultimately decides, "I can't let her die again. I can't,
Yeah, and in my mind too, like this scene, in my head, I'm going, because her mom, or Nancy, I guess, had said that she hadn't had sex yet.
Right.
And she hadn't committed any sin in this movie that would have gotten her killed.
Right.
So is that why Max didn't or knew that she wasn't dead? Is that what she was queuing on to, or the fact that she was just being hopeful?
I think she's just being hopeful, because the whole time, there's a lot I've skipped over where Max and Nancy have talked one-on-one, where Max has been trying to protect Nancy to keep her alive, because she knew if she had sex, it would end with her dead. And then Nancy also reveals too that she always had dreamt about going to college and getting married and having a daughter. And it was like very kind of like, because it is a character, yes, but it's also her mother playing this character. So she's just like, Max is like, "Well, you did do all that, or you're going to do all that," basically. Right. Yeah.
Well, and that's, I guess what I'm really asking is that the reason that he doesn't kill her? Because as the horror like villain, all these other characters have had sex. They talk about that. Right. So it's like, and that was the big thing in this movie, was you have sex, then you die. And at that point, so obviously when they get there, she's not dead yet. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Is that why? Is that something that's like notable? Why wouldn't he have just taken her there and killed her? Why did he tie her up?
I think
obviously horror movie gonna horror, but
say, it's plot convenience, but also too, there's always, a scene in a good 80s horror movie where the killer takes someone alive back to his lair and they have to go in there and save him.
Right.
So
Maybe I'm just reaching, but I thought that was kind of like,
and
that's
also,
how I justified it.
Also, too, we don't know how the actual Camp Bloodbath plays out.
True.
That could have actually happened in the movie. And then Paula's the one who went and saved Nancy or found her there. Then she dies at the cabin.
Well, I think they said Nancy dies right after she has sex with.
That's right. Yeah.
With,
so maybe someone else got carried. I don't know. I don't know.
I just thought that was interesting. The fact that he didn't kill her at all.
Right.
And she hadn't had sex yet. Because I was like, okay, maybe there's something.
Maybe he took
there.
her back and was going to wait or something for something to
I
happen.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. I can't give you an answer for that. But you're right. Now that you think about it, I think that's another one of those points where it's plot convenience, but it should have had an answer for something just to explain. But regardless, Max and Chris go off after Nancy because Max says he knows where he's taking her. And so they go and they find this chapel, and Max puts Chris in the chapel because Chris is not able to go on. He's like, he's wounded. He's like dying, basically. He begs Max to stay with him. He doesn't want her to leave him. He doesn't want to die alone. She's like, you're not dying here today. No one else is going to die like on my watch. She's bound to determine that the three of them are going to make it out of there alive. So she grabs up the machete and she goes to Billy's lair. And here's where we get the scene where she's got the lantern and she knocks over the jar and catches it with the hand she's holding the lantern with. I'm just like, okay, all right, whatever. But yeah, she finds Nancy and she unties her and about to get her out whenever Billy shows up and stabs Max
with a smaller knife.
With a knife, yeah. Because he only has a knife now at this point. He stabs Max in the stomach and almost kills her, basically. But the two are able to escape and get out back to the chapel. And here's where we have the continuity part where Chris is just randomly gone. We don't know where he went to, but it's just like he's not there now. And we have another very emotional scene between Max and Nancy, where Nancy realizes that Max is the final girl here. Nancy is not meant to be the final girl. She's meant to die. And so she says, I'm going to sacrifice myself basically for you. And here Max finally reveals that Nancy is actually her mother. Mm-hmm. We get this moment where she reveals it and there's not a lot of reaction to it really. She's kind of just like, it's like she knew this whole time that like inside her she knew that Max was her daughter. But it's this really nice moment between the two of them again, because it's like for the first time in the whole movie they've been talking, but this is the first time they've got to talk as actual mother and daughter since the beginning of the movie. Yeah,
so I had a lot to say about the scene, and I think what the biggest thing I had was trying to like dissect why. So you have this person who obviously is a real person in the movie, and they're talking to the movie version of this character who is played by the woman who's his mother. Obviously, it's not her mother. In a normal, there's multiple layers to this because there's like these little emotional moments between the two throughout the entire movie that build on their character. But then you get this scene, and it's like this is like blatantly open. This is who, and she just accepts it.
Right.
But then. So there's like this whole scene, just within the bounds of this scene, it's emotional, it's building for Max, Nancy, they're using it to get her to accept her fate and like that she needs to be the one that dies, all that kind of stuff. But also there's this whole subtext where it's like all these movies have these moments where people need this moment of clarity and things like that. So that's how I justified the fact that she just accepted this, because logistically, looking at the facts here, this character is existing in this world of Camp Bloodbath. She has her own backstory and stuff. You look at this and you're like, she should, in all like reality, she should look at this and go, what the fuck are you talking about? Like she should be like totally just dismissive of this whole thing, outside of the fact that they just met and they're friends.
But she's also aware that they're in a movie.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So she knows that, and then she's accepting of it. So it's like, is her acceptance the fact that she knows that she's in a movie and she's not, because she doesn't know she's not real. She knows she's in a movie, but she does like, I can't imagine she'd be able to comprehend that. But also in the scope of these movies, there's those quote unquote redemption arcs and those points where the moment of clarity before the final battle, all that kind of stuff where, people have their roles and they accept it. We talked about that already. So it's like I said, there's multiple layers to this scene that I thought really interesting. And it really added a lot of, no pun intended, a lot of depth to the movie.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree with you completely. I think I don't have an exact answer. I agree that like she's just kind of accepting of the fact that this is where it's going, and she's made it further in the movie than she ever has before. So she's just kind of like, she's willing to sacrifice herself here for Max. So that Max can, go on and live her life, because she knows that Max isn't actually a movie character.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's kind of just like, my life's expendable, but it's also, again, just what a parent would do for their kid. Mm-hmm. It's, they 100% would jump in front of that train for their kid before, their kid was the one who's going to get killed.
Yep.
So you have that very emotional scene. And again, too, go watch it. You'll see what we're talking about. There's a ton of depth. You're absolutely right. There's a ton of depth to it. There's different layers. You peel back the onion,
like Shrek.
like Shrek. You've got all this depth to it. But regardless, Nancy finally resolves herself to sacrifice herself for Max, and so we get almost kind of like the same like strip tease that Tina gave. But this one is set to Betty Davis eyes again. And it's, again, a very emotional scene because the door's open. Max is watching the whole thing, and she sees Billy approaching, and then just watches Billy take his knife and stab and kill her mother once again. And she has to watch her mother die a second time now.
I really like this scene.
Yeah.
I really like how it's shot, because it's not just, there's parts where it's like up close and her dancing, but like whenever it happens, it's like it's panned out way far back. Mm-hmm. And then you have like the scene of like Billy walking close and then her dancing, and then she's looking back facing her daughter.
She's watching Max the whole time. Yeah, she's not watching Billy or anything.
And she knows what's coming. Mm-hmm. And then you just see him like, because the movie isn't bloody. For it to be called Camp Bloodbath, quote unquote, it's not bloody at all.
This actually, it's a PG-13 movie, and this was actually Taissa Farmiga's first PG-13 film she's ever done. Everything else that she's ever done has been R-rated.
Makes sense.
So this is the first movie she's done that was PG-13. But honestly, I usually don't like PG-13 like horror films or like horror comedy. This one, though, I don't think it doesn't need the grotesque.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't need the explicit language or anything in it.
And I wish more, and we talked about this before, I wish more movies would do that, because whenever you can accomplish your point without the useless nudity, without the useless blood, the useless violence, do it. I mean, what like The Haunting in Connecticut was, whenever I watched it, I haven't watched it in years, but that movie terrified me, it was PG-13.
There's good PG-13 horror movies out there. It's just a lot of them fall into the trap of like, we're PG-13 solely so we can sell more tickets and fill this theater more. Yep. And we're gonna like, let our content fall to the wayside just so we can make it a PG-13 film. Yeah. I don't know. You can do PG-13 movies right. It's just don't
worry about the content. If it happens to fall in PG-13, then so be it.
Right. And this movie didn't need the R rating for it to work. I did not need all the gore and blood and nudity and everything. So
yeah, the only other thing I wanted to say about the scene was like, it's not just the fact that like in the field and there's like the backdrop and then the like with him coming up behind her, the clouds. I love. Oh yeah, like it's like thunder and lightning. I don't even know why, but like it's like a red and purple and orange, kind of like there's like a storm with a sun behind it. Mm-hmm. And it's like it's almost over. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Yep. But there's still a raging storm that you have to persevere through this in order to get to the end. Absolutely. That at that moment was exactly what the movie is trying to convey. Is there's a big storm that you have to get through, and then it will be okay. There's the sun shining behind the clouds. Like, you just got to get through this moment.
Got to get through it, and there it'll all be good. So, and that's 100% what happens here. As Nancy dies, Max then regains all of her strength, basically, because she is now the final girl. She is now, Da, 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 da. Yeah, it's almost like a level up character moment where she like gains.
Dude, whenever she stood up, I thought about Scott Pilgrim, which is funny you said that, because I like the moments where he gets like the power ups and stuff, and there's like those lights that come around him. That's exactly what I was thinking about.
So yeah, she like powers herself back up, and all of a sudden Chris is now back. This is again, he just like appears back out of nowhere.
Oh hey,
oh hello, how you doing? And this is what I was wanting to mention earlier about why the machete was so heavy, because here she twirls it like it's nothing. Yeah, like she picks it back up and she's like, all right, here we go, and like twirls it around. I was like, this is all of her final girl power. This is, you think about all these final girls. It's just like the embodiment of every final girl ever is now installed inside
It's
her.
like the Force, like the
It's
power
like
of all the Jedis
exactly,
before
it's
you.
like the Force. All the final girls before you are now giving you the strength to carry on. And so she walks out and she delivers the only F word in the whole movie. It's a great line. She walks out and she twirls the machete. She's like, "You just fucked with the wrong virgin," and
which is funny in and of itself,
it is,
by the
yeah.
way.
I know, right? It's a great line because that is stereotypical what final girls are. They're all virgins, so like therefore she's like, "You just fucked with the wrong virgin." So I'm gonna kick your ass now.
Well, I meant the idea of like fucking with the virgin.
I know
that
it's you,
is
yeah.
funny to me. She said that, and I was like,
the juxtaposition of it. We should have that like word of the day. Like everyone starts screaming. "Ah!"
weathercock.
So anyway,
I'm never gonna let you live that down. I'm never gonna let you live that
can we not talk about that ever again, please? Never again talk about that. Regardless, we're skipping past that. This is the big showdown between Max and Billy. Finally, we have this great epic fight. And then the moment I wanted to talk about the reference I was having earlier, there's a Matrix reference in here.
Oh yeah, where he throws the knife.
Throws the knife and she like slides like past. I'm just like, that's not an 80s horror movie.
It was super badass though.
It was
like
so badass,
because
yeah.
like you still have that like orange, purple, like red, cloudy, like lightning, and like the wind's blowing, the weeds are everywhere. So it's like that whole like from knee or like hip height,
Yeah.
and it's just like it's so cool.
It's like slow mo. She's like sliding. The knife is flying over her head. The lightning striking in the background. It's super badass. That's an awesome shot. But as she comes up out of that, she does swing around with the machete and decapitates Billy, and ultimately wins.
yeah, and there's like a couple moments there too where they're like he kicks her and stuff.
It's a
that's
long fight sequence, yeah, where you're not sure, you know.
well, and that's why I want to talk about it because it's like it goes back to that like whole thing where it's like, is he just normal? Is he like supernatural strength? Because obviously, like he survived the explosion. There's something supernatural about him.
Right.
But when he like kicks her, she like flies like in the Matrix. I think like that whole scene is
It's
Matrix.
like Matrix, yeah, because she flies back and it's like, you know, she's like, whoa.
Yeah, like
almost back.
8 seconds in the air, like oh
Yeah.
like that kind of. It's good though.
It's
But
it's a good fight scene. Again, you shouldn't be listening to this if you not watched the movie yet. So
it do be dope though.
go watch the movie. But yeah, she finally decapitates Billy. His head flies through the air and lands on the ground. And as soon as his head hits the ground, the storm dissipates and goes away. The sun comes out, you know, and the credits begin to roll.
In the
By
sky,
credits,
in the background.
In the sky, and by credits I mean Fort Camp Bloodbath. And it's a funny scene because Chris walks out now and joins her, and there's just credits rolling in front of them, and they're just like talking. And they're just talking about, you know, they can't believe they finally escaped this. Is it finally over? Like, what's going to happen next? And then as the credits end, the scene behind them cuts to blue, like, you know, like the end of a tape, like a VCR.
Yeah, almost like the FBI warning,
Yeah,
like
a
don't
end of
pirate this
VHS,
video.
Yeah. It cuts to the end of that, and then you get like the end of the film reel starts going up.
The weird
through.
colors and all that stuff.
Yeah, and they're like, what's happening? And they're like, well, I guess the movie's over. And then is it a bright white light that shows up? And then they like wake up in the
Yeah.
hospital. Yeah, so the bright white light fills the screen, and then the next scene we have is Max waking up in a hospital. And we hear voices behind her. They're talking about the tapioca pudding, which I love tapioca pudding. I think it's a great pudding.
Weirdo.
But you hear a female voice say, "You don't even like tapioca pudding." And he's just like, "But have you tried the tapioca pudding yet? I've had like 15. They're delicious." Which again, I am Duncan. And so
Fine, you can have it.
yeah, and so Max pulls the curtain back to find Duncan, Gertie, and Vicky all alive, sitting on a hospital bed. And Duncan, first thing he says to her is like, "You gotta try the pudding." It's like when you feel better, you gotta try the pudding. And Max is just like, "So wait, you guys are alive? Did this all actually happen? Was it just a dream?" And that's when Duncan stands up. He's like, "Was it just a dream? Does this look like a dream to you?" And lifts his nightgown up, or his like hospital gown up, and he's got this big like scar across his section. He's like, "That's a machete wound."
Listen, I love this scene because here's the reason I love this. He's like he's sitting up, he's talking to them, he's like eating the tapioca pudding, having a good time, and he's like, it was definitely real, this happened, yet his entire spine is not fractured and broken from getting hit by a car. I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, none of them, like, Vicky's not burnt from the fire or anything. It's just, he just has a scar from the machete wound.
So I didn't understand that, and maybe like the whole thing is like, all those other deaths, they weren't because of Billy. They were self-inflicted if you really think about it.
Yeah.
So, but they don't go into like whether or not what's her face, Gertie has like a machete wound through because she gets stabbed through like the back.
Yeah.
So
they don't talk about that. It's just Duncan's wound that he gets.
Yeah, maybe it was because it was like from Billy directly, because I don't think anyone else. Well, no. A couple people.
Well, no, Gertie gets stabbed directly from Billy. Yeah. And then Max had all the cuts and stuff on her face from the fight.
Yeah, and then I guess the guy,
Chris.
Yeah, Chris he got cut in the stomach too.
He doesn't actually even wake up until later on in that scene. He's asleep the whole time. Yeah. I don't even know. I think it's done mostly for like comedic effect. You're not actually supposed to think and be like, well, wait a second, what happened to their wounds?
Darn my brain.
Yeah, because it immediately cuts in from the fact that like he wasn't afraid of being in surgery. He was afraid of tetanus because he was like, I don't think that. He's like, that machete was rusty. I don't think the doctor gave me a shot.
Yeah, he was talking about how shitty the doctor was. Like, that not so good doctor. He's like, I was more worried about the tetanus.
So
I love his character, dude.
Duncan's character is great. Yeah. So I don't know what happened with the rest of the characters, but regardless, at this point they hear people talking in the hallway and they walk out and they all kind of like do the Scooby-Doo lookout where they're all just like in a totem pole effect, looking out, and the doctor's talking seductively to one of the nurses, and I don't remember, he says something about, he makes a comment about her boobs. I don't remember what exactly the comment is.
I don't remember either.
But it's another 80s like stereotypical comment, and we cut back to Duncan's face. He's just like, and then we see shots of like a bunch of different things. Like there's a Rubik's Cube on there.
Hey.
It's just like, a bunch of different effects that are, there's a Gremlins doll. Like
I remember the
Gizmo
Gremlin doll.
And it's just like, Duncan comes back and he's like, I forgot the sequel. And that's when Billy bursts through the glass door of the hospital, and we get Camp Bloodbath 2, Cruel Summer, and Max is not taking any shit. She grabs one of the IV like racks and just takes it and charges at Billy, and it cuts to black. And the movie finally ends, and that is where we end the Final Girls. So I love the ending. I think it's great because they're now in the sequel of the movie, and so I have a question I want to ask you here in a minute, but let's just wrap this up real quick. So that brings us to the end of the film, and ultimately it's left with open-ended of, are they going to survive the sequel? What's going to happen to them actually? Are they going to be able to get home ever? We don't know. There was plans for a sequel, I think, but they fell through. So
that's unfortunate because it was really good. So like I have a couple of things I wanted to say about the movie, so I don't know if you want to hit those first or you want to
go right ahead. Yeah.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the whole thing with her mother. I felt like the subplot of like the acceptance of her mother's death and moving on, it wasn't finalized. I feel like that whole scene in the chapel was more of like letting that, accepting the fact that like your role is your role was like the main point of that whole conversation. And it was more about Nancy, or her character in the movie, accepting her role, and that maybe it was like inspiring for Max to bring it up. But I didn't feel like there was a moment in the end of this movie where Max really went, I need to move on and learn from a mother's death and accept this and grow in it.
So I think I agree with you. There's a lot about accepting each other's roles in that scene. But I also think the whole time, if you look back at the whole movie, Max has been trying to save Nancy the entire time. She's like,
right, yeah,
all about saving Nancy. And it's at this point she lets her go. And that letting her go and letting her go die to Billy, I think, is Max's acceptance of letting her mother go and like move on and everything from that. Okay. And I think it's very nuanced. I don't think it's like super in your face, like this is her moving on. It's very subtly picked up on, I think. So it's easy to miss something like that. But I do think that kind of moment of her like letting her go out to be, killed for her as a sacrifice is her acceptance of moving on from her mother's death.
Okay, yeah, I guess you're right, because I know there was another point that they briefly talk about it where she said that she didn't get to say goodbye. Mm-hmm. So
And that was her, like, she got to say goodbye there. That
yeah,
time,
okay, that makes a lot more sense then.
So that's just what I think about that.
No, I think I agree with that. The other thing I thought was that we talked about the not being able to change your roles, and in in both the real world and the fake world, there was this like you said, these subtle nuances where. And you couldn't change the role that you were there in the real world or in the fake world. You just couldn't differentiate it because like the archetypes that they played to existed in the real world. And it was only because the archetypes they were bound to in the fake world that they realized what their archetypes were in the real world. So I just thought it was really cool how regardless of which character they played, they were the same in the other movie. And it really, because they, like we said, we've talked about 100 times, so I'm not going to reiterate it. They keep talking about this whole you are who your role is, and you can't change that. But then you have the fact that the one person that does break their role, break their stereotype, and yet while they don't become the hero, they become the sacrifice and the hero for the one character that also is. That's Max. This is why I watched this movie and I was like, wow, I really like that, but I can't give it like a 10 out of 10 because this is my issue with it was the fact that I could not figure out why Max's character, other than the fact that she's the virgin, she wasn't like super strong to me, and she didn't like catch me and I know we'll talk about that later, but like I didn't like her final character arc, like the whole like pick up the thing and just be a badass at the end. I was just like, I don't get it. I didn't understand why she had to be that way. Because there was like this arc where she was accepting, but then there's of like what happened to their mother, but like why does that change her archetype in that moment? Like,
I mean, I think if you're going into what you're talking about, how you can't change your roles, certain people are just set to be, you know, whatever roles they're in. And there are people who fall into that final girl-esque role, if you will. And if you look at the other characters you had from the present day, you had Duncan, who was the class clown, okay, and also like the nerdy one. You had Chris, who was your jock. You had Vicky, who was your mean girl. And well, actually, Gertie plays in the nerdy one. Gertie was like your nerdy character. And then that left, you know...
Right, yeah, and maybe that's what I picked up from this was the fact that because her mother changed her role, but sacrificed her life to give her daughter the role of the final girl, that's what changed Max's character to be accepting of who she was, because ultimately it was her mother's final gift to her whenever.
Right.
And not necessarily her mother, quote unquote, but how she perceived her mother to be in like a final caring sacrificial act, which is how she really wanted like to remember her mom as opposed to just dying in a car accident and not getting a goodbye.
Also, too, we do have that line there because from the beginning, her mother said she wanted to be a superstar. And at the end here, whenever she's sacrificing herself, she does get to say that she is a superstar because she's doing more than what she was given originally. Yeah. So you have kind of come full circle with that. And I think you're right with Nancy, aka Amanda, aka Malin Ackerman's character changing her role. It changes Max's role as well in a way. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I don't know what answer to give you though. I understand what you're saying. I'm just not sure.
Let us know in the Discord.
Yeah, go to the Discord. Also, the comments on the YouTube video. You guys watching out there, you guys can comment on the YouTube videos now. Hey. But yeah, I don't know. I think it is a very like nuanced and very subtle kind of like theme throughout the movie and that's what I was going to get into for the ultimate like, you know, ultimate theme of this movie and like a motif and everything that goes in it is you can change your role. Right. You aren't stuck in these archetypes. You might feel like you're stuck in these archetypes, but you can change and make drastic, you know, differences on people around you.
Yeah, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier about like Vicky's character. Typically that person, like in most of the times that there's like that bitchy female in these movies, they usually end up getting with some jock and then dying in a shower or something like that.
That redemption
yeah,
arc. Yeah.
So it like there's like the subtle change to, and like I said, we talked about it like 10 times. That's definitely the point of this movie. The overarching theme is like you can be more than what you think you can be. You're not defined by what other people think. So. But like Vicky's character was like the best example of that. Is like
absolutely.
There's the people in the beginning that are super defined by their roles, like Duncan, and then you go to Vicky, they start to change, and then Gertie, and then these other people slowly die off, and then it gets down to the end, and these people definitely just evolve out of who their characters are meant to be into something so much more, something better.
Yeah.
So
and I think that's a great concept for a horror movie to do because, again, it is meta within meta. So it's like, it's a great way of showing that kind of theme within a horror movie.
Yeah.
So I love what they did with it. My question I wanted to ask you, since we've talked about themes and everything like that now, my like main final question I want to ask you now, this movie, it's not explained at all as to how they get into the movie. They cut open the screen and walk into the movie, and then they're forever stuck in it. Like, even the movie ends with them still in Camp Bloodbath 2. So my question for you, did they die in that fire?
I had thought yes. Like looking at it logistically, I mean, obviously, that can't happen. You can't just walk into a movie.
They talk about this too in the movie too. They're like, "Is this heaven?" And then Gertie makes a comment. She's like, "No, Max is Jewish. She can't go to heaven." And they're like, "Is this Jewish heaven?"
So yeah, I had assumed that, or I'd assumed that Max was like in a coma. And because like obviously we don't know how these movies start and end, things like that. So when they woke up in the hospital, I was like, is that some type of reference? But obviously then it turns into being like the opening to the movie. But I had thought that maybe not died, but Max was in a coma and she was like dreaming all this. But I think it's definitely something like it's in her head. Like obviously this isn't really happening.
Right. They're not just suddenly teleported into the movie. Yeah. It's never explained as to how they get there or anything. So
yeah, and obviously like it doesn't matter because like the point of the movie.
Fun. It's not like you're not. I don't think the creators ever meant for someone to take it like we're doing it and analyze it.
Yeah, and I don't mean to like say like your question doesn't matter. I just mean like you watch a movie like Inception at the end, and that's like the main point is was it real or not? So like looking at this though, it's definitely just something outside the bounds of what the creators meant. What's our interpretation of it? And I definitely think either she's dead
or she's in a coma.
I thought coma more because there's a lot of self-actualization and realizations and personifications and metaphors of things like inner life and how it's important to her. So like those things I thought were more meaningful to someone who'd be in a coma and they're not dead because there's no point in it being dead. So there's a chance for her. So like these redemption arcs are something she lives through, and as like memories of her mother still being there, obviously gone now, but it's like she put the first chapter of her life behind her by accepting who she was and putting her mother in the past, and now she's charging forward into her future. But if she's dead, there's no reason for that. So that's why I thought coma.
That makes sense. Yeah, I like that a lot. And that's where a sequel would be fantastic to, kind of wrap these questions up. Although I will say I like the mystery behind not knowing how they got there, because I feel like if the movie had gone a different route to where if like Max had called a psychic or something to try to connect with her mom, and that's how they got transported into the movie somehow, was through like some kind of like psychic thing or something, I feel like it would have cheapened it. Like it would have made it, I don't know, it would have lessened the experience of the film. I like not having the exact answers as to how they got there. I like the fact that we can sit here and debate, is she dead? Is she in a coma? Was it a dream? Like what,
Yeah, and that, well, I mean, we'll never know, obviously, but I like the idea that it's like they weren't 100% sure that there was a door back there, or if there was, maybe it was blocked or something, and they got trapped. Like you just don't know. You have no idea.
So I don't know. That was my main question.
Well, another reason I thought it was in a coma too was because if they had jumped through there, and noticed the only people in there were her friends.
Right.
So it was like if other people had went through there, maybe there would have been other people from like the theater. Because if they were like it's an exit and everyone ran out, there might have been other people that joined them in this portal thing.
Which, honestly, thinking about it, would have been kind of interesting to have a few of those randoms in there, because they would have just been extra body counts. If this was a gory, bloody horror movie, it'd have been cool to have a few extra added to the body count. But I think overall, I'm extremely satisfied with how the movie is as it is.
I love it.
But yeah, I think that brings us to the end of our discussion of The Final Girls. So that was, it was great. Reminiscent of the very first episode ever where I was like, this is shit.
Dude, this is literal talk. I will never forget that. I will never forget that.
So, yeah, brings us to the end of our discussion of the movie. But however, before we go, Michael, we gotta rank our final girl here.
Let's do it. I kind of gave an insight on how I feel.
Yeah,
about it,
I kind of agree with you too. And it's funny because I always let the guests go first on ranking the final girl, but
not this, not today. This is the 1 year anniversary.
1 year anniversary. You want me to go
first? You get to go first this time. That way I can be like, you're fucking wrong.
All right. So if you guys aren't familiar with the show, what we what we like to do is we like to rank the final girl on a scale from S to F, S being the best, F being the worst, on how they fare against their villain in the movie. So for this, we have Max. Obviously, she is our final girl. I came in today with a thought that she would be an S tier for me because she does have, she kicks ass at the end of the movie, and obviously at the very end, she's like, I'm done with this shit, and just charges right at Billy, and the screen cuts to black. She's very adaptive, she's very smart, and she quickly comes to ideas around her. But with your discussion about her in the beginning and how she kind of doesn't come into her full self until the very end, I think I'm going to have to drop her to a high A. Yeah. I think that's where I'm going to have to put her as a high A for me.
Okay. Yeah, and I thought A as well.
Yeah.
I couldn't decide on which tier of A, but A, whatever. And the reason is like we talked about, the movie's slow with her. It's like you said, it starts the first 30% of the movie. It's just like this shell of a character is going to get utilized, but it's just not there yet. And then it starts to pick up, and then there's this bell curve that just shoots up at the top, and it's great. It's great development. But the problem I had with it was, like I said, I didn't feel like she reached that full potential, or there was something big enough to propel her, because regardless of what took place in her past and what she's hanging on to, she has so much. She still has tons of friends that care about her. She has a piece of her mom left. She has tons of people who idolize her mother. All these things that she has in her life and around her that she isn't valuing well enough, and she's letting friends go regardless of how good they were. She's just she's not being a good friend. And I was just like, if you cherish those things and you went into this situation with that mindset of what you can appreciate and still grow from, and I'm not shitting on people that have had traumas, because I will never know what that's like. That's not happened to me. But I just felt like as a movie, there could have been some more, or a movie character, there could have been some subtle changes they could have made to make her character development go from A to Z just in a straight diagonal line. So, but yes, A, absolutely. I really liked her character.
Yeah, so. I agree. I honestly, we were just saying her character arc goes stagnant, and all of a sudden this bell curve thing. I think honestly, I think Vicky had almost a better character arc.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
and maybe it was just because it tied into the main. I liked hers more. It tied into the
main theme a lot better, I think.
It did. So. It absolutely did. And
I agree completely with what you're saying. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let us know what you guys think. I'm talking to YouTube people now. Let us know what you guys think about Max in the comments down below. Where would you put her on the scale? But yeah, that brings us to the end of our discussion of the Final Girls. That brings us to the end of our episode of the 1 year anniversary, Michael.
It's crazy. I can't believe it's been a year.
It's been 1 year. But before we go, though, I did want to mention, Michael, and those of you guys listening and watching at home, we're going to do a special giveaway.
I want free stuff.
You want free stuff?
I want free stuff. You want free stuff?
I'm actually glad you're wearing the shirt tonight, because those of you guys watching on the YouTube video, you guys can see in the giveaway, we're giving away several different things, one of which being merch from the show, a t-shirt. This is our, logo.
I love this shirt. It is crisp, clean, black with a nice high upper left or right left chest logo, and you can't really see it, but it says the Final Girl Podcast, and it's got a knife, and there's a girl running with blood on the knife that definitely wouldn't catch on fire. So yeah, these things are crisp AF and they're comfortable.
So yeah, those of you guys listening at home, you know our logo from the album art. That is not what's on our t-shirts. That would cost so much money to get those printed. I love that album art so much, and the guy who made it is great. But I love these shirts too. So that is going to be included in the giveaway as one of those shirts. Also including the giveaway, I'm giving away a Blu-ray/DVD, whatever, comes in the combo pack of Midsummer, which is our first episode we ever reviewed on the Final Girl podcast, and a Blu-ray copy of The Final Girls as well. So,
listen, Midsummer, my favorite episode yet, my favorite movie that we've watched on the show, and still the only movie that's been done on this show that I think about every fucking day.
Dude, Midsummer's so good.
It is so good. And we have the little...
Yeah, we got Florence Pugh hanging out back here, some artwork of her. So yeah, if you guys didn't catch that, that's what that's referencing here is her with the bear trap and everything from an artist that we both appreciate.
Also, we know you guys love it too because that's our highest listened to episode of Final Girl. Every day continues to climb. And I understand why, because people
are
want
so confused. They're like, "What is happening?"
Yeah, dude, I was the same way. I had to sit and I was like, I need to take an hour to just sit and close my eyes and think about this fucking movie.
I think what my favorite thing about that episode is you didn't like that movie until you came in and talked about it.
I didn't.
And now you love it.
Every day I love it more too. Every time I think about it, every time I see something about it, I'm just like, you still see people coming out and finding new things that are hidden in that movie. It's so good, fucking good.
So yeah, to enter the giveaway, guys, like I said, we're gonna give away a T-shirt, some stickers from the show, a copy of Midsummer, a copy of The Final Girls, and yeah, that's everything. I'm forgetting my own giveaway: T-shirt, stickers, and then a copy of Midsummer and a copy of Final Girls. That's gonna be our giveaway for the Final Girl podcast 1-year anniversary giveaway. To enter, all you guys will have to do is go to Facebook, find the post that I'm going to share. On Friday when this episode comes out. It should be live whenever you guys go listen to this episode. Go to Facebook, like it, share it, tag 3 friends in the comments down below. That's all you got to do. You're in to win.
Will it be on Facebook and Instagram?
So it will be on Facebook and Instagram as well, yes. Okay.
So you can't share on Instagram.
You can't.
So we just have to like
and tag comment. 3 friends. Yep. Okay. So on Facebook, like, share, tag 3 friends. On Instagram, like and tag 3 friends. Also follow the Instagram.
There you go. Should do that.
Yeah, you should follow the Instagram while you're there as well. So, because again, like I said, we're pushing so close to 100 followers, and I'd love to hit that with this giveaway. So you guys have from now, which is going to be Friday, March 12th through March 31st. I don't know what the date is on March 31st, but the winners will be announced April 1st. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get out. Trying to express that it's the worst way I could possibly express that, but there you go. You have from March 12th through March 31st at 11:59 p.m. to enter this giveaway. Winners will be announced on April 1st. So good luck to everyone. Hope you guys all enter. So I'm excited.
I'm gonna enter.
You're gonna enter. You're gonna get yourself another T-shirt.
I have everything you talked about. I just like winning shit. I mean, who doesn't?
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening and watching. To those of you guys out there on YouTube, I hope you guys like the new format. I hope this does well. If you guys like the videos, let me know and we'll make more of them because I enjoy doing it.
This has been great. So I really like this.
Yeah, it's been really cool recording. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. 13 Palm Trees Podcast Productions, run by this guy right here. There's tons of podcasts out there. They bring you Final Girl Podcast. They bring you Goobers of Gaming. They bring you Video Game Mythos. They bring you D&D Kinda. And they bring you Wasted Local Talent. So go check those out wherever you get your podcast. Facebook.com/Final Girl Podcast. You can find out information about us on there. Also, the giveaway information, everything will be on there as well. Instagram at Final Girl Podcast. And then if you guys want to help support the show, you guys can check us out on Patreon at the Final Girl Podcast there as well. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters. You guys are great. I appreciate each and every one of you so much, especially, you also are on that as well. So especially thank you for that. But no, I appreciate everyone, whether you support the Patreon or not. You guys are great. You guys, it's been a year. This show is because of you all. I couldn't do this without the listeners who listen to the show every other week. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all in every way of the word. So
You make a grown man cry.
You make a grown man cry. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you this time. So until next time, guys, take it easy.
Look, movies like this end when the final girl kills the main bad guy and the credits roll.